Hello, everyone, and welcome to a special holiday episode 13 of the Saturday Morning Gaming Show. It is December 21st, 2019, and I'm your co-host, Thefatwizard, joined today with a new co-host,
Alamaxia. How's everyone doing today?
Alamaxia. It's so good to have you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Happy holidays.
Well, thank you. Right back at you. We're playing Home Alone today, and because it's kind of a short game, we're actually covering two games. First ever, we're going to be covering the Super Nintendo. Actually, we're covering the Sega Genesis version first. That's playing right now on the screen. That one was released in North America in 1992, and we're also playing the Super Nintendo one. That one was released in 1991. So we're going to cover the first double header right back to back. We're going to cover the first Genesis one, the first 30 minutes, and then we're going to swap on over with no breaks in between to go the Super Nintendo one for the last 30 minutes there. So, yeah, we're taking a look at the Sega Genesis version right now. Starts off with no real... Well, actually, there was a little bit of an introduction. I believe it shows like Harry and Marv, who are the two villains of Home Alone. I guess this game is going to make a lot more sense if you've seen the movie, but Alamaxia, if people haven't seen the movie, can you summarize the gist of it?
The gist of it is you have this kid, Kevin McAllister, who was left behind by his parents. They went on a holiday vacation. He's just left alone in their mansion of a house. And
they're a very wealthy family.
Very, very wealthy. And he ends up trapping this house because there's these two bandits known as the Wet Bandits, Harry and Marv, that are trying to get in and steal everything.
Yeah, the Wet Bandits. How do they get that name? Do you remember that one?
It's because they flood houses when they're done.
Yeah, that's like they're calling
all the water turned.
Yeah, I think one of the Wet Bandits actually says that's their calling card. They're super proud of that.
and so Kevin traps everything up and just really tries to stop them and rough them up as much as he can until the cops arrive.
This is go ahead.
And the one thing I really love about the Sega version of this is it keeps true to the essence of the movie. It really does.
It really does. Yeah, this was the quintessential movie as a child because, Kevin is left home alone and he's got every kid wants to be left alone and like have all the food he can eat and all the video games they can play. And so, of course, like Alamaxia summarized there, you're trapping the house because there's these burglars that are coming in to try to steal. And that's what the gist of that movie is, right? And you get to play that, and they nail that spot on. There's a lot of really fun traps here. As we're seeing, there's a blowtorch you can put down. Actually, so what happens when you go into a house, you see a blueprint of the house, right? And that blueprint allows you to install traps before the robbers get there. So one of the traps is like a blowtorch. And I think most of these traps are from the movies. Can you think of any that weren't actually in the movies?
I know there was like the toys, the blowtorch definitely. I remember Harry getting that really toasty top to him.
Yeah, toasty top, yeah. And there's tacks you can put down. And they're very fun because they all have different reactions. So if a robber walks in and gets hit by a blowtorch, he kind of turns black and charred and is stunned. If he walks on toys, they comically fall over and slip, just like we just saw.
Scene there.
Yeah. So the structure of the game is, there's actually two types. There's two difficulties. There's beginner and expert. And so you start with beginner, presumably, and it has you defending 5 houses for 20 minutes. And the structure is they'll pick a house to rob, and I think it's at random. Alamaxia, did you get an understanding if it was random or predetermined?
I think it's entirely random. I only played through beginner once. I did expert twice. And expert, they started in different houses, but in the normal, they started in Kevin's house.
Okay, yeah, and so normal, you defend the houses, and there are 3 bars at the top right of the screen. There's ammo, which shows your ammo count, because you can pick up things like BBs for your BB gun and snowballs for a snowball launcher. We can talk about weapons a little bit later.
Oh my God, the weapon crafting system in this game is amazingly in-depth.
It really is. Yeah, we'll talk about that in a little bit. So continuing on with the bars, we have loot. And loot is essentially, as the burglars are in the house, there's these safes on the wall, and as they rob these safes, they increase that loot meter. And if they hit the loot meter at 100%, the wet bandits have succeeded. They flood the house, and they move on to the next one. If you lose all 5 houses, you lose the game. So how do you actually stop them? Yeah, how do you stop them?
As we see, the pain meter got filled because it did enough damage to them, whether it be through hitting them with our weapons or them running through the traps enough, or even some of the houses have their own defensive mechanisms that will slow the bandits down. And if you do enough damage to them, raise that pain meter, they will drop all their loot that they've accumulated in that house right there and just up and leave.
Yeah, it's really fun because the pain it comes in many different flavors. The traps will cause some amount of pain. As Alamaxia talked about, the house defenses will cause pain, and of course your weapons will cause pain. And so you just need to make sure that you're able to achieve maximum pain before the loot is completely looted. And it is sort of a resource hoarding game where I should say it's more of a resource management game, because you don't have infinite ammo, and the traps you don't have infinite traps, and you actually have to find equipment through the game to put together to get your weapons. So like we just picked up some wire, and then I think it was a paint can. And as you're collecting all these little bits and pieces of weapons, you can assemble them into larger weapons there. Alamaxia, what was your favorite weapon that you used on the bandits?
I really liked the snowball rifle. It was just
direct
to the point. Direct and to the point. What I didn't really care much for were the launchers and the mortars, because they were so hard to aim, because they shoot just at high arc, and it went over Harry half the time because he's so short.
He's so short, yeah. So there's a couple different categories of weapons here. We've got the rifle weapons, and those, like Alamaxia was talking about, they shoot straight at the enemy, and that's going to be things that use generally a crossbow. And then they have the mortar weapons, which you were talking about, Alamaxia, which is they kind of start out at a 45-degree angle, and it's more like he's trying to play Angry Birds than trying to shoot robbers, right? And then you have the bazooka weapons, which are great because those, I think those were you're talking about your snowball launcher, because those shoot
I think that's
out,
what you just used on the video right there, is the snowball launcher.
And then you have launcher weapons that are kind of like mortar weapons, but they have a smaller arc, so they're quite a bit easier to use. Then there's actually some expert weapons. If you play expert mode, there's actually some different items you can pick up, which was really cool. Because expert mode, you have to defend all the houses for 40 minutes, but they give you some new tools and toys to play around with, so that's a pretty cool thing.
In all, there's on normal mode, there's 16 different weapons you can craft, and on expert, they add 6 more, so a total of 22 weapons on expert. Again, it's oddly in-depth for a game that lasts only 40 minutes.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, we're going to be getting a sampling of both beginner and expert in this video, but because beginner is only 20 minutes, we have 30 minutes allocated. Like, you can literally beat this game faster than finishing listening to this podcast. And I do recommend people take a look at it if they have access to it, because it's a very non-traditional Genesis game.
It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. It was unlike probably any game I've ever played. It was just this cat and mouse game where you could even find a balance between getting them to chase you and intentionally letting them pick you up and put you on a close-up.
Because
you could just waste their time.
Exactly, because they physically have to interact with the safe on the wall to be able to steal the loot. And if they're busy carrying you off to I guess detain you, they can't rob you. So actually, that's something we failed to mention was the robbers, when they catch you, it's not like game over or they reduce your health or anything. The only thing they do is they put you on a hook, and it takes maybe 10 seconds to get off the hook, and then you can go back and then.
Yeah, if you just mash your buttons real quick, you can get off it in a few seconds. But if you're just kind of, I don't know how to get off it, then it's gonna take you a little bit to hop off.
Yeah. And so it really is, you have 20 minutes of playtime here. There's no lives. There is a score, and you get score for things like picking up items, saving houses, stuff like that. But it's just a real chill game. There is some stress, and actually in expert mode, there's a lot more stress. But in beginner mode, it's just kind of like, it's a lot of fun to just go around these houses.
Expert definitely for about the first 25 minutes is a lot of fun. The last about 15, you're pulling your hair out because you're trying to find any kind of ammo or weapons you can to just slow them down.
Yeah, and as weird as the analogy is, it's somewhat like Resident Evil, where you're just, you might have a gun and some ammo and you're feeling pretty good, but when you're all out of ammo and all that, you just have to be real creative about how you approach this scenario. So we just finished the beginner mode, pretty easy stroll through. I think I kept all 5 houses alive on my very first try. Now we're dipping into expert mode, which is considerably harder, and you see it starts up with 40 minutes to defend. So you're talking about the first 25 minutes were fun, but in general, what was your strategy for dealing with expert mode here, Alamaxia?
After doing normal mode, I discovered, my traps my traps are shared between all the houses. I accidentally spent them all in my first house, so I really tried to math out. Okay, I have like 21 traps that I can lay down. I can put 4 in each house plus 1 in another one. So I tried to math out how many I could put in each house. And then I just went around and hit as many snowmen as I can to get as many materials as I could to just build my first weapons. And after they would either take a house or I would save a house, I would again just go and try to hit as many snowmen as I can before they got to the next one. Because it really, like you said, it came down to resource management. You couldn't waste your ammo. You couldn't miss your shot. This really is a definition of a game that's easy to play, easy to learn, and pretty hard to master.
Yeah, talking about missing your shot with that mortar thing, because the angle was so high, many times I wanted to make sure I landed that shot, so I'd get right up in their face, so they would get hit on the upward trajectory there.
Or it'd take Kevin too long to pull it out, and then
and then you get captured.
Yeah, shot it.
I did have some scenarios where they picked me up right as the bullet went through them, so it was like it was double bad because it was a wasted ammo, and I got in the penalty box for a little bit.
Yeah, the double whammy.
Double whammy there. Now you're talking about going around and hitting the snowmen to pick up items. Did you notice that when you left houses and when you went back in, the snowmen would actually respawn with new items?
I didn't, but I know that as you drove around, sometimes a snowman would respawn in a further point in the map. So I would literally just make a big circle around the map.
So I think we'll get to this on expert, but I just want to come clean on this because I feel like I cheesed the last 20 minutes of expert mode because I had one house left. So when you do expert mode, they hit up the houses a lot quicker, and it seems like they're much more efficient in stealing your loot. So right off the bat, I was losing like 2 or 3 houses, and so I had like 20 minutes left with one house. I'm like, let's just see how this works, and I managed to secure it pretty easily. Because what happens when you cause enough pain for them to leave the house, you have a little bit of time to go and collect stuff. So let's say 30 seconds. And during that time, what I found is you could go into a house and then leave the house, and around the McAllister's house, which was the last house I had, there was like 3 snowmen that would respawn, and each time they would have new items. So I'd go into the house, collect all the items, go back into the house, and that's like 5 seconds. And you do that like 5 times, and you've got enough snowballs to cause enough pain to buy yourself some more time. So that was really interesting, although it's probably really boring to watch because it's about 20 minutes of doing the same thing over and over and over.
Yeah, we can see right here that they just looted everything in the house and just said, oh, they flooded the house. So get that named the Wet Bandits, and then they leave and go on to the next one.
The next one. And the house turns blue. One thing I really enjoy is when they loot. So they don't actually show them flooding the house, or you don't really see any water. They just kind of walk out of the house, and Kevin's standing there with that iconic screaming pose, where he's got his hands on his face. And then he just moves on to the next one. Now, I didn't actually get to a situation where they looted all the houses, so I'm curious what happens. Although it sounds like you didn't experience that either.
No, I didn't.
Well, we're getting into another house here, and I wanted to briefly take a step back and talk about the different houses, because there are 5 houses in the game, and so there's the mansion, which is the starting house there, and it basically has 3 floors and a spider, and the spider will periodically come down and hit someone, including you.
Yeah.
I got hit many times. Alamaxia, are you a fan of spiders over there?
I'm definitely not a fan of spiders. I keep a spider bro around the house because he keeps bugs away, but for the most part, no.
And robbers spiders. Maybe, right?
As it turns out. I know it. Knock them down a few times.
Yeah.
Let me run away from it.
Additionally, there's an ultra modern house, and this one's very unique because it almost looks like it has those pneumatic tubes like from the Jetsons to go up and down levels. I don't know if you made that association.
That really caught me off guard. Just that modern house. That was the point at which I went, hold on, where did I see this in the movie?
They take liberties on the houses they rob here. But the fun thing about the ultra modern house is that there's this robot that comes out with this outstretched hand, and it will pick you or the bandits up and just electrocute them and drop them. And there was this one scenario where I had both Harry and Marv were next to each other, and it sort of they were in this wicked loop where the robot would pick up one of them, electrocute them, and then immediately pick up the other one, and then it just cycled through that, and it was brilliant because I was just standing there like I imagine Kevin just like having a heyday watching this. So that was really cool.
I just picture him sitting on top of a TV because all the TVs were massive, and just sitting there with like a cup of milk and a cookie, watching them from 10 feet away. Because he was almost sadistic in a way.
Very much so, yeah. Continuing on with the houses, we had the colonial house. This is the only house that has 5 floors, and it's actually haunted by an old ghost, and that ghost shoots electricity from their hands. So there's actually 2 houses that have electricity that defends the house. But I didn't really go into that one. I found that most of the times the robbers wanted to rob the mansion, which was Kevin's house, and the mansion and the ultra modern house. So very rarely did I get to see the other houses. Then we had the old house, and this one's interesting because it's 3 floors, but there's an attic that can't be reached. So on the blueprint, it looks like there should be more, but there's only 3. And there's weak spot on the floors here, and they crumble when you jump on them. How many times did you jump trying to pick up an item only to have the floor give way on you there, Alamaxia?
Probably every one of the floors at least twice.
At least twice. And the funny thing is, you know exactly where the spots are, and it got me every time. I was like, oh, right, there's a thing there. So you can't jump there. But yeah, if you fall through the floor. What's really fun is
with the floors is if you could catch Harry or Marv jumping over it and hit them with one of your guns, they would fall through it.
Oh, that's amazing! I had no idea. All right,
and also just knock them down that floor, so they have to climb all the way back up. It was real hard to time.
That is some pro strats, my friend. I like it. And so the final house we have is a country house. And this one, oh, actually, so the old house doesn't have any defense other than the weak spots on the floors, but of course that won't damage them. Then you have the country house, which looks like it's the old grandma sort of style house with the rocking chair. But there's 4 floors there, and the cat guards that house, and touching it will cause it to pounce you and attack you. So, what is this really saying about cats? They're good defenses, but maybe very evil to children. I don't know.
They'll attack anyone on sight.
That's very appropriate there. Did you have any particular favorite house there?
My favorite house was probably the ultra modern, just because it had a lot of interesting character to not only the layout, like you could actually, some levels kind of dip down a little bit and back up.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
For some levels, and there was some ledges you could hop up on. But that robot, man, that helped out so much.
Yeah, because the robot actually starts on one end of the house and just does a complete sweep through that floor. So anything in that straight line will, in fact, just get picked up. And Marv and Harry won't really attempt to evade, so they just kind of walk in a straight line. So if you can lure them up there, or use the tar traps, we'll talk about that in just a second.
Yeah, those tar traps.
Anything you can do to keep them on the level with the robot. So let's talk a little bit about the tar traps, because I think that was probably the most powerful trap. Even though it doesn't do any damage, it is permanent.
I would agree.
Yeah,
because most of the traps would go away after the guys hit them a couple of times, but the tar trap would just stay there.
And the tar trap slows them down quite a bit. Probably, I'd say about 1/3 of the speed of what they normally do. And so, often what I would do, and I'm sure you did this as well, is you'd put a tar trap down, and you'd go to one end of the tar trap, and you'd shoot them, and they'd fall down. And then you're like, all right, well, you're down. I'm going to go to the other end of the tar trap and have you come back at me to shoot you. And as long as you have ammo, you can keep doing that.
Yeah, and that was a great way to waste time. You could waste 3 to 4 minutes pretty easily, like you said, as long as you had ammo.
Yeah, and again, I want to stress how important it is that you're just trying to waste as much time as possible, because especially on expert mode, there's 40 minutes. There's nothing you can do to make that timer go faster. It is real time, 40 minutes, go, right?
Yeah, and your first time through expert, you don't really realize how important that statement is, that you're just trying to waste time. You're not trying to raise their pain meter as quickly as possible. Yeah. You're trying to waste time.
Yeah,
you literally want to wait until the last possible second on their loot bar and then max out their pain meter.
The only reason you wouldn't want to is if you're going for a high score, because the score does take into consideration how much loot they were able to get up to, I believe.
That's true.
But the most important thing on your score is the number of houses that you save, because that will factor into your very end score.
And also with the houses that you play, the number of weapons you use, like the number of different weapons, actually plays a factor into your score.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. So you don't want to just use one. You're talking about using the snowball launcher and you love it, but you only get, I think it's 100 points for each weapon you use during that cycle. So you do want to kind of cycle through that stuff. So let's actually talk a little bit about the weapons. You had mentioned that there's a real interesting crafting system. Did you get a sense of how that actually worked? Do you want to explain that?
So I started getting an idea of how it worked, and then I eventually looked up just a guide to see really what
that's what I did as well. Yeah,
because there were just so many combinations with the crossbow, which was one of the platforms. So with the crafting, there's 3 different pieces to crafting. You have your platform, your operator, and your ammo. Your platform is basically what launches the item. What's carrying your piece of ammo? Is it a crossbow? Is it a can, a scoop? And then your operator is going to be, how is it launching it? Is it like with a string or a balloon? Like the balloon might be it's throwing it through. And then the ammo is obviously what's being launched. So you have like glue, which you see that they just got glued. Or you have a bouncy ball that puts them into a giant bouncy ball that like turns them into this huge.
It doesn't make any sense, but okay.
It doesn't, or a snowball turns them into a snowman.
Yeah, very
but
cute.
they have But then they had those expert weapons that I made one of them. It was like a light, like a photo launcher or something. It just made them stop for a few seconds. But another one I really liked was the pepper ones.
Yeah.
Just made them sneeze uncontrollably.
Yeah, the pepper one was great. I think maybe what you're thinking, what you made was the flashbulb shotgun. So
Yes.
the combination looks like camera, wire, and flashbulb.
Yes, that was it.
Yeah. So in beginner mode, when you pick up items, and then you go to the crafting system, it will actually automatically assemble your weapons, and you can deconstruct them if you don't like them. But I preferred that. I wasn't a huge fan of trying the combinations of stuff.
I did not know you could deconstruct them.
Yeah. So on the right side of the screen, there's two. So when you go to the crafting screen, there are two icons. I think one looks like a screwdriver and one looks like a wrench. So the screwdriver, I think whatever the one is on the top, will allow you to craft the item, and then the one on the bottom, which I think is the wrench, will allow you to deconstruct whatever weapon you currently have selected. So that's really useful, especially on expert mode. If you run out of ammo for one weapon, and you're like, well, I want to deconstruct it to get the platform, and then use this on another weapon that I have ammo for. So that's
that
sort of
would
a
have been helpful
high-level
for me
strat.
because I ran out of platforms for my last about 5 minutes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so if you would have deconstructed, you would have been good to go.
I guess that's one of those instances where having your good old gaming manual would come in handy. Instruction manual.
Yeah, I'm actually curious. Very rarely do I look up at the manuals for when we recover these games. As a child, I love reading the manuals, but I'm actually really curious if they printed out all the combinations in the manual or not. I would suspect that they might have some, like here's like 3 or 4 to get you started, but I think I tried
to look up the manual, and I was only able to find like a French version of it. So I looked through, and it at least had some pictures and explanations of things that probably would have been helpful. But all the different combinations, I really think that they probably would have kept that at least a little bit of history.
Are you telling me you didn't learn French specifically to master this game?
Oui?
No. I think that means no in French. That's awesome. So we've got about a minute left, I think, in this video. So a couple last things I wanted to talk about. One of the items you can pick up is a tire, and that's a cool accessibility or utility item, because some of the items in the house are on shelves that you can't get to normally. So what you'll do is you'll throw down a tire, and for some reason that tire makes you jump higher. I guess I didn't really think about how weird that was until I started explaining it. But think of it more like a trampoline. Wait, is it a trampoline or is it a tire? Now I'm really curious.
It is a tire because the controls specifically say
yes.
Tire.
Okay, so I don't know. Okay, I'm not going to think about it because it's like a monster truck tire. It is not a small like Honda Accord tire. This is like, no, you've got your big semi truck, monster truck, whatever, and you're throwing that.
And like Link from Zelda, he just pulls it out of his back pocket and flops it out in front of him.
Yeah, I think I had like 5. Poor Kevin was carting around 5 tires. It's like CrossFit Olympics here or something. So yeah, and you can see here on the video, I'm doing my sequence of just going into the house, collecting all the loot, and then going back into the house to respawn the loot and getting all that stuff. So eventually I figured out, like, I have pretty much unlimited ammo as long as I'm willing to just go around this loop over and over and over. Kind of makes me wonder, talking about speedruns on this game, I guess the world record for this game, speedrun, is probably like 20 minutes and maybe 40 minutes. I don't know. Although that would be fun. I'm actually really curious to see if there's any way that you could speed it up. Because actually, no, it's probably... I think the world record could be optimally 40, but when you think about it, there's time that you're in menus and stuff that do not count against the time. So if you're trying to construct a weapon, the time's essentially paused. So Actually, it might not be as
And
straightforward.
does the time pause in the screen transition whenever they grab you?
Good question. Yeah, so this might be more interesting than we originally thought. There, we should do some investigation on that. But that'll have to wait for another time. We're on to the next game. No sleep here because we got the holidays coming up, and we've got the Super Nintendo version playing now, Alamaxia.
Going from Home Alone to Home Alone.
Home Alone to Home Alone. Now, just kind of real quick thoughts. Which was your preferred game?
My preferred game for gameplay and for accuracy to the movie was definitely the Sega one. I loved that one because I loved how you could really be heaven. And the Super Nintendo one, though, it really laid the foundation for more of a story because they actually had more of a cutscene. But as we enter the game here, we see that it's very, very different. It's this odd platform.
Yeah. So like Alamaxi alluded to, the game starts with a introduction of the wet bandits outside of the McAllister's house, and they're like, we got to get those jewels. And you know what I got a kick out of is they listed VCR players up there with jewels. And at the time of the movie, of course, VCR players were probably, $100 or something like that. But it's comically, I'm like, no, seriously, if you want my VCR player, come and get it because I can't get rid of this thing, right? But it is comic to think about, what was valuable enough to include in the needs for the wet bandits here.
Here you got VCRs, bags of money, and candelabras.
Candelabras, yeah. It's like, that's kind of weird. But in a mansion like this, I guess it makes sense. And we are in Kevin's house here. So we're at the first, the Genesis game we're playing cycled between like a top-down view of the sledding to go from house to house, and then a side view. We are strictly in a side view for the Super Nintendo one, and this is more of a traditional platformer, I'd say. Where you're, it is scrolling left to right, and there are enemies that come at you from the screen, and essentially just things you want to avoid and stuff like that.
So
although
the enemy we've been seeing so far on there is Harry. It took me a little while to actually figure out that was Harry. It looked a lot like Odd Job from Goldfinger.
I actually had no idea who it is because it doesn't look anything like Harry, so I'm really glad that you pointed that out. The other one, Marv, actually looks like Marv because he's a little bit taller and more. He's got that hair, the real short curly hair
that just really homeless look.
Yeah. But okay, I guess that is Harry then, huh? I don't know. But so in this one, you actually do have life, and if you get hit, they call it power, and if you get hit 3 times, you'll essentially die. And of course, Kevin does his. He has the scream, and he puts his hands up, and it just cuts to a little image that's like, "Oh no!" And then you restart. What I thought was an interesting point of trivia on this game is this is one of the first Super Nintendo games that actually had digitized voice acting. And so I can't think of any voice acting that occurred other than Kevin saying, "Ah!" But there you have it. The basis of all voice acting in video games, maybe? I don't know. I don't know that we want to put this game on that pedestal, but that's what my notes say, so we're going to go with that.
Yeah, this guy here is I think this is just a different version of Marv. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, because this is a guy with like an umbrella and a hat on, like a skull cap hat. So the premise of this game is there's 4 different levels, incredibly short game, but you start out in Kevin's house, and what you need to do is you need to collect, I think it's like 20 pieces of loot. So there's some trophies, some candelabras, some jewels and money bags, and you want to pick up all those things, and then you throw them down what looks to be like the clothes chute. Is that what they call them? Laundry chutes? Yeah, laundry chute.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I was like, what is this, a laundry chute? And I just went over and hit up on it, and all the things in my backpack went out.
Yeah, and
going down to the vault.
Yeah, down to the vault, and you'll pick those up later. But you can only carry each house increases the amount of loot you have to both get and carry at the same time. But in the first house, I think you can only carry 6 pieces of loot at once. So you have to do a lot of back and forth, because I think, you got to pick up 20 pieces of loot. So that basically means fill up 6, drop it off, fill up 6 more, drop those off.
Yeah, I think it went, I think it was like 6 in your backpack for the first level, 8 for the second, 10 for the third, and I think it was also 10 for the fourth level.
Okay. And once you collect all the loot, and it looks like there's actually more loot in the house than you actually had to collect, which is nice because some of the loot's kind of hidden. Once you do that,
would actually take it out from in front of you. We saw earlier we knocked
right.
down like a brooch, and Harry just ran straight over and picked it up and ran off.
Picked it up, yeah. And he plows right through you, and he doesn't care about you. He's just like, I'm just getting this loot and getting out of here. Once you pick up all the loot, you see a brass key that falls down to a door that's normally locked, and you use that key to open up the cellar. And the cellar, the first house is a jumping puzzle. So there's bats that infest their cellar, and the bats come on 2 levels, on like high and then low. So it's kind of like jump, don't jump, jump, don't jump, that sort of thing. And so that one's actually pretty easy. I don't know, Alamaxia, did you kind of knock that out on your first try?
Yeah, that wasn't too bad. I think one of the rats got me my first time through, and I lost a life.
Oh, that's right.
Because he timed himself right when one of the bats was coming across the top, so I had nowhere to go.
Yeah, I forgot about that. So there's bats, and then there's also a rat that'll kind of mix things up a little bit. And so anyway, you get to the end of that level, and you pick up all that loot that you had just thrown down the laundry chute, and then it goes into the safe, and you're like, all right, cool, I'm on to the next level. And so this is where things start to diverge quite a bit from the movie, I'd say, because you start out in the normal mansion, but the level is actually called Jewelry Wing, and you're like, okay, that's kind of weird, but whatever, because it looks like what you'd expect Kevin's house to look like. And then they're like, oh, I think the robbers went to the Toy Wing, and you're like, what? Toy Wing? And this is where just like they took a lot of liberties on how big the mansion is and what type of stuff the mansion holds. But this one's kind of just a bunch of old style like robots and toys and pinball machines and stuff like this.
And overall, the placement of the rooms and the placement of the laundry chutes was virtually identical between the levels, but the insides of the rooms and the actual decorations were all different. Like there were some decorations in some levels you could jump up on and platform your way to a higher spot, and then some levels like this one you can't jump on these plants.
Yeah, except for the nutcrackers in the toy wing. There are these large nutcrackers which are holding, I guess they're muskets, right? They look like muskets with big bayonets on them. And those bayonets you can stand on. So you can use those to sort of platform. Sometimes there's loot that you have to use those platforms to get to. But sometimes that you can just... what's going on? It looks like Marv... We're watching the video here. It looks like Marv actually decided to stand on one of the guns, and he's just standing there.
I came across that too, and he never moved.
Okay, so maybe that was...
for a couple seconds. He just sits there.
Maybe that's intentional. But yeah, sometimes you can use those guns to actually jump over the enemies that are coming after you. So you do have a water pistol, and you have some other guns we'll talk about in a little bit, or other weapons.
That guy is.
Yeah, I don't know. It kind of looks like some like really bad wrestler. So he's kind of like a wealthy individual. He looks like almost like an old timey banker, right? He's got the gold chain, but he's throwing baseballs at you. So I don't remember that being a critical part in the movie, but I haven't, I'll be honest, I didn't watch all the deleted scenes, so there might be a millionaire banker with baseballs at some point during that. Yeah, so going back to the weapons a little bit, we have the water gun, and the water gun is unlimited ammo, and it shoots maybe half a screen in front of you, because it kind of like falls off over time. And what you do is you can hit the enemies with it, and after maybe like 6 or 7 shots, they'll keel over and be stunned for a couple seconds, and that's your opportunity to jump over them. You can't. When they're stunned, you can't run through them because they'll still damage you. So you actually have to jump over them, right, Alamaxia?
Yeah, and with Harry or with the enemies, they took a different number of hits depending on which one it was. Like the base Harry that you see just standing around, he took I think 5 hits, and then Marv, the one that just came charging straight at you. I think one time I put 10 hits into him and he didn't stop. But I did discover that. Go ahead.
I was just going to say there are other weapons as well, but I want to hear about your discovery first.
My discovery is that it was along the lines of the other weapons, is that the little water gun here, you could just knock them over and they would just be like, ugh, and then get right back up. But if you use some of the other weapons, you could actually knock them off screen, like you just saw
really?
hit those tacks and fall off screen. So if Harry is blocking your way, you could hit him with the water pistol enough and switch over to like the slingshot, which is more of a direct shot straight across the screen. Hit them with that a couple of times, and they'd actually, go off the screen until you did a scene transition.
That's interesting because I didn't realize that. So you talked about the tacks. I noticed that if you lure them over to attacks, or you lure them to the tacks, they'll step on it and they'll fall off the screen. You don't have to deal with them. But the weapons that you can use, so there's like baseballs you can use. There's actually a gun like a BB gun you can use. There's a slingshot. But when you hit them with those things, the sound that it played was always sort of like, it sounded like they were invulnerable to it. It makes kind of a clinking sound instead of like a squishy sound that you would expect. So I was like, is this weapon are they immune to this weapon?
And you see the bullet just bounce straight off of them too.
Yeah, so I kind of just stopped using it. So that's really interesting to hear that those could actually knock them off the map permanently. So
and
that does change strategy.
I think it only made the squishy sound when they were doubled over. So definitely try it. Pull up the game again and just give that a shot.
Yeah, cool. So did you have a weapon that you liked the most then?
I really just stuck with the water gun for the most part. The game was easy enough that I didn't find the need to use any of the other weapons. The game is definitely tailored for a younger crowd.
Yeah, I think the
platforming is not difficult.
Not at all. I think the only things I really had some difficulties with were the cellars, level 3 and 4, because the cellars get a little bit more complicated. And again, you don't have a whole lot of damage to soak up here. So you can get hit 3 times before you have to redo something like the whole cellar. But we just made it to the second cellar here. This one's super creepy because there's a bunch of spiders that are moving up and down and left and right. So you have to time your jumps and you have to go in between them. And then you get to the end. But this time there's actually a boss. It's a huge tarantula. It's like, it's so gross, right? But they have a...
Good thing we have a trusty brick to squish it with.
Yeah. It's just a really weird way to fight a boss. But it's kind of fun because you get a sort of a rhythm down. So what happens is you get locked into a specific screen. You can't move off the screen. And the boss will come at you from the left to the right and the right to the left. So it kind of follows you. And in the middle of the screen is a brick. And you have to hit the brick, and then it falls down and it hits the enemy, if the enemy happens to be below it. Every time you hit the enemy, it will speed up. So the first time you hit the spider here, it's pretty easy to time it. But after you hit the spider like 4 or 5 times, it's going pretty quickly. And so you're just like, I'm just going to keep jumping at this brick and hope that it hits it, right?
Yeah, and I wasn't sure how many times it would take. I mean, obviously, with a game like this, just keep hitting it until it falls over.
Yeah. And it was very clear that you were doing damage to it because when you hit it, it's kind of stunned for a second, and that gives you an opportunity to reposition yourself safely by jumping over it or whatever. So we did complete level number 2. We're now on to level 3. This one here is the electronics wings. And this has, those real old style computers and real old TVs that look like they could have a VCR player built into the TV there.
That's how rich they were.
And digital clocks. Digital. Can you believe it?
So many digital clocks. They had to have at least 3 in every room.
Yeah. Just need to know what time it is at all times. So we're
one thing I do want to point out with the kind of treasure hunting in this is that you see us jumping around, and it isn't just jumping around left and right. I was also mashing up and down a lot because some of the platforms you wouldn't actually land on, or you wouldn't find the item unless you were hitting up over it. So it was very much jumping around very aimlessly and trying to hit every single sprite that you could.
Yeah, because sometimes by jumping, you would activate some sort of trigger that would be like, oh, that's where the loot was, and it pops out.
Or like what we just saw, we just landed on that little gold outlet there.
Yeah.
And we kept running through it, and all of a sudden, oh, we landed on it. That's something else we can land on. And we'll see probably later on, there's a little jumping puzzle we can do to get to a piece of electronics that involves hitting like 3 or 4 of those in a row.
Mm-hmm. Now, while we're still investigating the electronics wings, let's talk a little bit about lives and the collectibles you can find that allow you to increase that, Alamaxia. What did you think about the particular food item that they had?
I think that food item is very, very, very good. Good old pizza.
Just a cheese pizza.
Good old cheese pizza.
Hey, because Kevin likes, if you remember, Kevin likes cheese pizza. So it makes sense that he collects cheese pizza. If you collect 6 slices of cheese pizza, you get an extra life. And there's also whole pizzas, and so that's just an instant extra life there. There's also what looks to be a cookie, and that cookie will increase your or restore all your health.
Does it restore all your health, or is it just restore one little pit? Because
I thought it was all of it. Okay, there might be, yeah, there might be 2 different cookies that restore maybe just one, and then all. Yeah, I have to go back and look because I wasn't quite sure there. But just like all the other items, or not all the other items, I should say, unlike all the other items, the pizza is always hidden. I don't think there's ever been a time where a piece of pizza has just been lying out. So you have to either open up chests and drawers, or you have to jump around the room and just try to find those pieces of pizza. In general, it seemed that there's between 6 and 8 slices of pizza on every level. So each level should have the ability to give you like an extra life, right?
Yeah, I think I ended up actually positive lives towards the end because I was getting actually like 2 to 3 lives a level. Because you find those whole pizzas, and then you find all the little pieces, so you get a life there.
Now, did you use an emulator for this? Did you use save states at all?
I started using save states by level 4 because I just got tired of using continues.
Yeah, exactly. And I kind of did the same thing where as far as I can tell, the levels are pretty static. And because a lot of it is just kind of hunting around for items, it wasn't necessarily fun or challenging to like replay the level if you die on cellar. It was very
repetitive.
Yeah. So I very quickly, I'm just going to save state in the cellar part because that's the only part that really requires some sort of mastery here. And that allowed me to just kind of burn through the game a little bit faster there. But, you know, with the game only being 4 levels, maybe they wanted you to replay that stuff. Hard to tell. One of the areas that we're in right now I thought was really interesting is you go into a room. And is this Harry or Marv? I don't remember the names.
That's Marv.
Marv is coming at you, and it's almost like a wall closing in. Very slow. He's walking towards you very deliberately, and you see these 5 switches on the backdrop.
Those were coat hooks.
They look like coat hooks.
I just ran out of that room. I didn't know that you could do that.
Oh, really? Yeah, so they look like coat hooks, but they do appear to be switches. And what you can do is you can shoot all 5 of those switches, and that scares Marv away, and it then drops like 3 pieces of loot from the sky. So there's a little secret treasure stash they've got there. Oh yeah, speedrun stretch there. There you go. So we are now collecting. We've collected all of our loot for level number 3, and we're gonna now drop back into the cellar. As you can see, what I did is I actually collected a little bit extra loot, and you can turn that in, but I don't know that it does much for you. I think it just gives you some extra points, but I don't think there's a real reason to collect all the loot.
I turned in all the pieces of loot in one level that I could find, and there wasn't anything extra that happened. It was just simply points.
Yeah, and you think about games like Mario and stuff like that. A lot of times they would reward you in some way or another for getting all those points. But sadly, this game did not have that. Um, so one of the reasons why I want to speculate a little bit, it did seem like there's that this might have been a what's the word here? Abbreviated port of the Game Boy game, because one of the big complaints about this game was the shortness and the lack of boss fights. What was really interesting about there was a game built. I think the original was on Game Boy, and so this was a port of the Game Boy. In the Game Boy, Marv and Harry were actually bosses of the fourth level, but in this game they're just enemies. And then the final boss from that game was the Furnace, which is nowhere to be found in this game. So I think it's interesting, and we see this a lot, with games of that era, is even though the games would have ports, they would be wildly different from game to game. And even as we're playing Home Alone, because Home Alone was released on the SNES, PC, NES, Genesis, Game Gear, Master System, and Game Boy, and almost all of them were completely different. Some of them had some similarities, but there's just a thing about the time is you'd take a game like or some franchise like Home Alone, and you'd contract like 3 different companies to make a game for each platform. And if you really liked Home Alone, you could play 3 different Home Alone games, which was kind of interesting.
And it really kind of makes sense because they had to get it out in a timely manner. Making a game wasn't an overnight thing, and it really still isn't. So contracting 3 different companies, making 3 different games, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Nowadays you don't get that at all. But you do get a lot of ports. But most of the ports are always going to be the same, right? In any case, we're on the 3rd boss. We just finished the cellar, we finished the navigation of the cellar to get to the end boss, which was a bunch of ghosts. And surprise, surprise, the last boss of this cellar is a ghost. This one's pretty easy. He just jumps in an arc, and so again, same mechanic. All the bosses you have to hit in the head with the stone that you drop down. But in this one, you basically just have to run under the ghost as it jumps up. So this one's pretty easy. I didn't really have too many issues with that.
So I don't know if you noticed, but with the first boss that we had to fight, the spider, there's a safe spot on the far left side. You could just sit there and he wouldn't run all the way over and hit you. And I tried to do that with the ghost the first time, and he just came over and just knocked me right into the wall.
Oh no. We are on the very last level here, which is the pet swing. So if you're a millionaire with pets, what sort of pets might you have, Alamaxia?
Oh, I mean, if I was a millionaire, I'd probably have, a bunch of dogs. I'd have some cats, maybe some exotic animals, maybe, have some frogs jumping around the house, some birds randomly flying.
As all millionaires have. The frogs. That's the one. It's like, why are there frogs jumping around here? But yeah, so there are frogs, birds. They look more like hummingbirds. I'm not sure. I think there's also...
And lizards on the wall.
What on the wall?
Do you see that lizard?
Well, yeah, I was always thinking it was a chameleon. But you can pick those up. That's actually loot. I believe that's actually loot.
Yeah.
But they will actually climb up the wall and go away. So I thought that was cool. And so you pick them up, of course, and then you deliver them to your trusty laundry chute. I'm surprised that they're cool hanging out in one spot down there. You don't go down to the cellar and there's a mess of animals that have all just kind of
very well behaved.
They're almost like Kevin squished them in his pockets as he was carrying them around the house. But we'll assume that Kevin was no animals were harmed during the making of this video game. One of these rooms we just walked into has some toy blocks there, and I just get a kick out of it because they spell dad, D-A-D, and I just think that's hilarious that I could just imagine the designer being like, we need to make this a kid's room, and they're like, I don't know, what do kids like? And they're like, they like toy blocks. Cool, what do they do with toy blocks? I don't know. They spell dad. There you go. Stick it on the level and make. It's just like.
and then we also saw the other toy blocks had MS, and I read that as like Mrs. So they had dad and Mrs.
Yeah, okay. I misread that. I thought that said AS. So as. So I don't what was as, but maybe it was an M. I don't know. The resolution of those letters it leaves a lot to be desired. So it could be some secret Russian code or something like that. Who knows?
Ooh.
All right, so each of these houses has 2 floors. Sometimes you start on the bottom floor. Sometimes you start on the top floor, but I think they're more or less equal in length, and you do have to navigate both of those to be able to get all the loot. And so right now we're on the top floor. I think we have about half the loot on the last house here. But before we go any further on this, I wanted to talk briefly about the start of the level, which is always what looks to be Kevin's bedroom. And what I actually thought was clever is it tells you the level number, what level you're on by the jersey number. So above Kevin's bed, there's a big jersey, and it always and the jersey's facing the back, so you'd see the number of the jersey, and it always has the number of the level. I thought that was kind of cute.
Didn't catch that.
Oh, really? I'm really glad that I brought it up then, because you start out in level 1, it'll just have a 1, and then of course on this level, the pets level, it'll have the number 4 there.
Yeah, because honestly, by the time I got to level 3 and saw that it was just kind of the same collection going through the same house, a little different, I thought it was going to be something almost procedurally generated, like it's just going to go on forever and you're just going to keep collecting.
Oh, that would be a nightmare. Oh, no.
There's no end credits.
Well, this game, talking about just the length of this game here, this game is pretty short. I think I use save states to get around the cellar to kind of optimize that, but I think I beat this game in like an hour and a half. Alamaxia, how long did it take you?
I'd say about the same time. Okay. And even without save states, it's a game that's easy enough to pick up, easy to learn, and also really easy to master. So I'd say within 2.5 hours, you could get to the last level without even losing a life.
Yeah, and you're talking about mastery. I did want to, and that reminded me of the jumping responsiveness in this game, because these are one of those games where you almost have to jump first and then maneuver afterwards. Alamaxia, I don't know if you kind of noticed that, but if you're trying to make a platform jump, you don't want to run and then jump like a Mario type of thing. You almost want to jump and then just move around, right?
Yeah, because if you did a run and a jump, then you would always jump like your full distance, and almost nothing was placed that far away. Everything was like half distance from where you were. Yeah. So you had to kind of stutter step your way to the edge and jump and move.
Now we're on the last sequence here, the cellar, and I thought this would be kind of fun to keep in the video there. It's a bunch of me kind of like doing the cellar and then restarting real quickly or reloading from the save state. But the way I found it was easiest to complete the rat thing was just if you just kept running, just keep running and jump. It was like all the other ones, it was better to just kind of like be slow, take your time. But this one is just keep running, because the rats come just from all over and you're just being bombarded by rats. And so and
then after all that, we get to this boss, and this guy just is erratic. He has no pattern to him.
Erratic. Yeah.
He doesn't know where he's going to go.
I just want to make sure you picked up on that. Erratic. Okay, I'll stop. It's the holidays. I know everyone's taking a while to get warmed up here, but we got to stay on point. When you knock one out of the park like that, you really got to acknowledge that. So yeah, this one, all the other bosses tended to move all the way to the left and then all the way to the right. This rat here, so first of all, it jumps up and down, but not so high that you can really comfortably go under it like the ghost. So it'll jump up and down and go left to the right, but then sometimes it'll decide to just like stop. So it'll get like halfway to the right and be like, I want to go to the left now. And that became very difficult to time the dropping of the stone on its head. But I do manage to do it, and I love when you kill the bosses, they just kind of like fling off the screen. They're like, just kind of get shot off into space there. And once you complete that, you shove the rest of the loot into the safe, and now your parents are happy because all of their prized possessions are now secured away. and they come back, and you get a nice, kind of reuniting scene with Kevin and his mom. And I guess because in the movie, his mom is the one that comes back first because she kind of takes this really arduous trip, and everyone else comes back later, right? So I guess that makes sense why the whole family isn't here. It's just him and his mom. And then of course,
all that end scene I feel has great meme potential.
Oh yeah, because a lot of it is just like those bubble quotes, so you could just replace the text there with
and it's the perfect format. It's like, did anything happen while I was gone? Did everything okay? Oh.
And the last shot there you see is Harry and Marv in jail, and is it Marv? Marv's the short one, pointing at Harry, just like very angry at him. And says the end. So there we go. We completed 2 Home Alone games in the span of an hour. Closing thoughts on that, Alamaxia. What do you think?
Super Nintendo one, like I said, it was fun as a just basic little platformer. If I kept the mindset of this was obviously designed with a younger audience in mind. Yeah. But the fact that it was called Home Alone, I really I had a hard time figuring out how it related to the movie in any way outside of the cutscenes.
Yeah.
And really, it may as well have just been called Little Kid Fights Off Odd Job and a Homeless Guy.
Yeah. And this is a type of game we don't traditionally cover on the Saturday morning gaming show, but I really did like this because this was kind of a palate cleanser of just like some lighthearted gaming to kind of
and it was fun. This is a game I never would have picked up. I never would have tried, but I had a lot of fun, especially with the Sega one. That is one I will definitely try again and probably try to save all 5 houses.
Awesome. I'm glad that we introduced you and some other people to the game and that you enjoyed your time there. So that's going to wrap up Home Alone. But before we do so, we wanted to thank all of our new Patreon subscribers and of course the current Patreon subscribers. We really appreciate your support. It's great to see you out there hanging out with us, especially all the people in the Discord channel. We have a lot of fun there. If you want to join on the Discord, you're more than welcome to, and it'll be a good opportunity to talk about our next game. But before we do that, I just wanted to give a quick shout out to a new Patreon member we got. Was Hostile Badger. So Hostile
Badger, welcome to the group.
Yeah, thank you so much for your support. And we have some cool rewards for you there. And of course, we've got the Christmas card. Actually, it's the holiday card. And so it's still available if you want to get a holiday card signed by Lobos and I. And we got a cool little retro-themed photo shoot we did there. Make sure to join the Patreon. You can do it at any tier, $1 or above. So you can kind of get in on the cheap there and get that really cool holiday card. And if you want to learn more about that, you can head on over to patreon.com/Saturday Morning Gaming Show to learn more. One other thing that we added was a little goal there. So at 25 Patreon members, we're going to do a 2-hour special on Earthbound, which I've heard is a pretty cool game. So
I've played Earthbound once, and that is an incredible RPG. It has an incredible story that will leave you going, what?
What did I just play? Yeah.
What did I just play? But it is so good. It is so awesome. Good.
I'm excited. I really hope we get that. I really want to check that game out. We're about halfway there, so if you really would love to see some Earthbound coverage there, you might want to check out our Patreon there and see if the rewards interest you enough to toss us a couple bucks there. Yeah. So, but after actually, what do we got next here, Alamaxia?
Next up, let's chat about the Hall of Heroes.
Awesome. So the Hall of Heroes is a chance to really be recognized for playing the games that we talk about every episode. And so the way it works is you complete the game, and then you snap a photo with your name somewhere nearby and send that image in, and you get some points to be added to our Halls of Heroes here. So all you need to do is upload the image to Imager, and then you can shoot a link to Saturday Morning Gaming Show at gmail.com, or you can send it to us on Discord or the Twitter or whatever kind of works for you. But let's now go over the Hall of Heroes for Home Alone. All right. Here we are. Oh. There we go. Boom. Almost.
Boom.
We got it. Just give me a second. There we go. Got to turn off the movie. There we go. Cool. So, I just got to pull up the little text that they gave me as well. Cool. So, the first up, we've got Hostile Badger, and Hostile Badger did complete both games, so he'll be getting 10 points. Hostile Badger says, discovered your podcast a couple weeks ago on the recommendation of one of your new hosts, Xwater. Well, thank you so much, Xwater. Xwater, a great person, really fantastic streamer, and we're glad that he's sharing some of the love with us as well.
And Hostile Badger been pretty active in Discord. Thanks for the chat.
He also continues to say, excited to submit my first completion, and he attached. Couldn't get the Mega Drive version to work on a RetroPie, but we got it to work on eventually there. So I only played the SNES version. Definitely a fun little game, and I don't remember playing it before, so thanks. Keep up the great shows. I'm really enjoying them. So yeah, Hostile Badger's got 2 images here. He's got that one and that one. Keep trying. Teacher's Pet is the score he got there. Awesome. Thank you so much. Next up, we've got Mackie Mole. Mackie Mole says, enjoyed both versions of the game. Couldn't pick a favorite, but did spend too much time on the sledge racing round. So yeah, the sledge, running around the sledge. By the way, we didn't talk about the sledge, but it's very, like, you can bounce off houses and shrubs and cars very easily. The physics on there's a little wonky.
And if you actually took your sled fast enough and hit a fire hydrant, you can knock the fire hydrant off and get 50 points.
50 points. The next one's actually Alamaxia. Now, Alamaxia kind of came in here at the last moment to help cover for the show, so we did give him points there. But Alamaxia, he sent in 2 images, completing both games, of course, and he says, 2 very different games with different approaches. Neither one does even a remotely good job of capturing the story of Home Alone. At least the Sega version gave Kevin traps weapons and a goal to stop the bandits. At least it has some of the core essence of Home Alone, luring the enemy into traps and defeat them. So awesome! Thanks, Alamaxia. Congrats on beating both of those. Oh, and he gives some scores here. He says Sega 6 out of 10, SNES 3 out of 10. So not a good 10 on that one. And of course, the last one we got Gaming Signer. Gaming Signer did only manage to beat one of them, but he still gets 5 points for that one. And he didn't leave a note, but I'm sure he wanted to wish you all happy holidays. So congrats to all of those individuals here. Now we're going to go over the leaderboards here. And you can see Alamaxia is on here. Starting from the bottom, we've got Alamaxia, Hostile Badger, and the Joyful Dragon, all tied at 5 with 10 points. We got Mackie Mole. He's really creeping up on Gamer Steiner there. Mackie Mole now has 30 points at number 2. Gaming Steiner holding on to that number 1 spot with 35 points. But how long is he going to be up there? I guess we'll
Mackie
find out.
Mole on the rise.
Yeah. So congrats to everyone that's on the Hall of Heroes for that episode. All right, anything else, Alamaxia?
So what game are we going to play next?
Oh, I'm really glad that you asked, because this one is a perfect game to start the new holiday season. I guess to start the perfect Christmas game. We're going to be playing Diablo.
Yes.
And so technically it's the Diablo plus Hellfire expansion. And this was actually recommended to me. Someone shot an email to the Saturday Morning Gaming Show. Said, hey, you should play Diablo. I was like, that's a really great idea. We should play Diablo. And so guess what? We're going to play Diablo. And so... yeah, go ahead. And
that's one that I've never actually beaten. I played Diablo 2, played Diablo 3, beaten those numerous times. Diablo 1, I got to the first boss and hightailed my way out of there and uninstalled the game because I was too terrified as a little 10-year-old playing that.
It's a really great game. The progenitor of a whole genre, I would say, of video games there. And so one of the things... just to be clear, this isn't an advertisement and we're not sponsored in any way, but I do want to make listeners aware that GOG.com does have that package up on sale for like $9. So it's the Diablo plus Hellfire expansion. So you can get in relatively cheap there on that real classic game. And it does have multiplayer support. guess what, Alamaxia? We're going to be coordinating people in the Discord to play along with us. So we also encourage people. Yeah, actually, what's really weird about Hellfire is it doesn't actually have multiplayer. So the original game does, but Hellfire doesn't. I don't know.
And we can also do some PvP.
If you'll want to do that, you can play PvP. But I do encourage everyone to jump into the Discord. Tell us what character you're making, and let's try to coordinate some playtimes, because that game is really shines when you have some teammates there. So let's get some over the holiday break. Let's get everyone in that Discord channel and playing and slaying demons together. Well, sadly, we have reached the end credits of this episode, and we wanted to thank everyone for watching us on Twitch. That's twitch.com/Saturday Morning Gaming Show, or for listening to us on the podcast.
And our Twitch airs every other Saturday, 9:30 a.m. Central U.S. time, and the podcast releases the following Sunday. So make sure to follow and subscribe on your podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Google, or whatever your platform of choice is.
And of course, if you have any feedback, we'd love to hear from you. Just drop us a line at Saturday morning gaming show at gmail.com.
Or follow us on Twitter at SaturdayMGaming.
And a special shout out to TechnoAxe for much of the music this episode.
For Saturday Morning Gaming Show, I'm Alamaxia.
And I'm the Fat Wizard. We'll see you January 4th to ring in the new year with Diablo and Hellfire.
Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, safe travels.